right, well, welcome to our webinar today to kick off our new webinar series, Emerging with Supply Chain Strength. We're very excited to have Paul Granillo of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership with us today to talk about the economy, inland Southern California, and the state of logistics and manufacturing. So should be a jam-packed session, and Paul and his team at the IEEP are absolute experts on this area. So it'd be exciting to hear what's going on. So Paul has served as president and CEO of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership since 2010. And during that time, the IEEP has become one of the most recognized statewide organizations focused on galvanizing cross-sector leadership in order to build a stronger regional economy through a triple bottom line framework. And IEEP has a strong focus and works in Washington, D.C., Sacramento, and locally to ensure that San Bernardino and Riverside counties are well represented. They certainly have, made a substantial difference in the business environment in this area. So very much appreciate Paul joining us today. So Paul will go through, and Paul, just let me know, we'll collect questions and ask them to you as you'd like, Paul, or through, we can intersperse some throughout. It's up to you. But if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A area or the chat box as well. I believe I should be able to see them. And with that said, we'll turn it over to Paul. So go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Lisa. Good to be with all of you today. Appreciate the invitation. I want to focus the presentation on really two areas. One is through some work that we're doing as a regional backbone for the economic recovery. And so it's a two-county task force, and it has several moving pieces. And by doing that, I think we can also dive into the current state of the economy of the Inland Empire in Southern California. And then second, I want to focus on what is a major push for the region to create a center of excellence in logistics, not just for the Inland Empire, but for the state. And so with that said, Lisa, I think we can go to the next slide. And we can go one more. So the task force, early on in the COVID in April, my board of directors, and for those of you that don't know, the Inland Empire Economic Partnership is a 501c6 and a 501c3. As a 501c6, we do advocacy for our members in Washington and Sacramento and locally. Our members tend to be the larger employers of the region in both the public and private side. The largest private employer in the Inland Empire is Amazon, probably around 23,000 employees. Second would be Loma Linda Health, and on down. So my current board of directors, my chair, Peter Villegas with the Mercury Consulting. I have UPS, Union Pacific Railroad, the gas company. And so you start to see who our membership is. And then as a 501c3, we work on some of the issues that affect our region. And one of our biggest issues is education and educational attainment. So the Inland Empire, for regions of over 1 million people, sits at the bottom of baccalaureate attainment, and about 21% of our population has a baccalaureate degree. That's key because that holds us back from being able to participate in other parts of the economy. So we are a heavily blue-collar dependent region. And our economy really is led by logistics, and we'll get into that, construction, manufacturing, and the blue collar jobs in healthcare. And so those tend to be a lot of my members. And we also have the two counties. One member of the Board of Supervisors from Riverside and San Bernardino sits on our board of directors as well. Our Education Council is headed by President Morales at Cal State San Bernardino and Chancellor Wilcox at the University of California at Riverside. So the leadership of IEP came together and said, we don't want to have the region be where the region usually is when there's an economic downturn. And that means that we get hit hard and then we come out of it at the very end. And so the purpose of the task force is to mitigate against that. And we're trying to do that by using the collective power of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership and our membership to listen, to understand where various sectors of the economy are, to focus our research capabilities to help us look at the long-term effects of this. I know it's been a year, and it's probably going to be at least till another year before things are anywhere near where normal was. But it's not just the masks and the social distancing. There are impacts to the economy that are going to be long lasting, and we need to be able to understand what that is. And then we also need to be to focus on workforce. We know that the face-to-face industries are the ones that have been hit worst, especially hospitality and leisure. And out of that, we also know that there's going to be permanent job loss, that this is something that is going to impact our workforce in a very significant manner. So the next slide, please, Lisa. So there you see the three working groups, the one on research, and that is led by President Morales at Cal State San Bernardino and Chancellor Wilcox at UCR. Our economic recovery team is headed by Peter Villegas, my current chair, Al Arguello, who's the market president for Bank of America, Supervisor Janice Rutherford, and Supervisor Karen Spiegel from Riverside County, and Supervisor Rutherford from San Bernardino County. And then we have our workforce recovery team, and that's chaired by Julie Pekkanen. And Julie chairs the Inland Empire Desert Regional Consortium of the community colleges. So there are 12 community colleges in Riverside and San Bernardino. And Patrick Ellis, who is now the chair of the Riverside County Workforce Development Board, BJ Patterson, who's the vice chair of the San Bernardino County Workforce Development Board, and Dr. Carlos Ayala, who's the president and CEO of Growing Inland Achievement. So with those three teams, we're trying to really stay ahead of the economic and workforce issues that COVID has created. So the next slide, please. So in the economic recovery team, there are subcommittees. And these are the subcommittees, the Council of Advisors to Municipal Government, and you can see the other ones there. And what we've done is really try to focus on listening and listening to these various sectors of our economy. So we know, again, that hospitality and leisure, restaurants, small businesses have been hurt the worst. But we also know that some sectors are doing just fine or actually better than they were. And so what we've tried to do is to keep listening and then focus attention where attention is warranted. And we're going to continue to have to support the leisure and hospitality industries, the restaurants. I think that making a special effort to spend money locally with the small business community is something that we need to do because things aren't going to be back to normal for them again for another year. As we look at regions of sub-regions of the Inland Empire, we're very heavily concerned about the Coachella Valley. Now 2 years without the Coachella Music Festival, which is responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars coming into the valley and to the region. It's very difficult for the Coachella Valley, and it will continue to be. And part of that is their reliance on the hospitality industry. The Coachella Music Festival, the Stagecoach Music Festival, the American Express Golf Tournament, all of those, right? Not being able to bring actual people in just has a ripple effect through the hotels, the restaurants, and all of the supporting small businesses for that industry. The next slide, please. So really quickly, the goals, the economic research team. The research team is focused long-term. So what are the long-term ramifications? They're focused right now on housing, and housing is an issue for the Inland Empire just because we continue to grow. Always use the example of the city of Eastvale that did not exist 10 years ago and now is a city of 70,000 people. Anywhere around Ontario and the former dairy preserve in Chino, huge growth in housing. But we need to look at the trends, right? What has COVID done with virtual work, and what are the opportunities for the region? So as I say that, rents in San Francisco have dropped 13%, okay? And they've gone up in the Inland Empire by 7%. And so we have to look as a region, I think, at the opportunities to attract businesses that may be in Orange County or Los Angeles, but their workforce predominantly commutes from the Inland Empire. And as virtual work becomes more the norm, maybe you only go to the office 1 or 2 days, and you're able to work at home. Certainly, we've seen some of the larger corporate companies up in the Silicon Valley just say, "Yeah, you can work from home from now on," right? So that's a real thing. And then so we need to be studying how's that affecting housing. We need to understand taxes, the hit to taxes. That's important both for the cities and for the counties. And we need to look at unemployment and underemployment and the future of work. And so those are 4 categories that the research team are looking at. And IEP has a team of economists. So one of our economists is leading each of those 4 categories and working with professors at Cal State San Bernardino, UCR, Cal Baptist, and the Claremont colleges to bring their expertise to those areas. And then we're going to host a listening session for our members of our legislators at the federal, state, and local level to really look at policy changes or direction that can, again, help mitigate against us coming out of the economic downturn at the very end, and might also give us some opportunities because we're able to see that things have fundamentally changed in the economy or the way business is being done. The economic recovery team, in listening, we've just done a survey of the city managers of the region and looking at how the cities have been impacted. Many cities, it depends where you were financially going into the downturn. So if things were bad, they got worse. If things were okay, well, you might be okay. None really reporting that things are just fine, right? And the way that some of the cities have had to cope with golden parachutes and early retirements, a lot of the cities' part-time employees were let go. So if you're in Parks and Rec and the parks were closed, if you were hired during the summer to do childcare, those all went away. And so we're just trying to understand where the cities are. We're focused, again, small business help. We created a small business fund. We're working with the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, for instance, who've given $1 million to small business. 50 small businesses are going to get $20,000 a piece, and that's running through the fund. So any way that we can utilize that fund to support small business, keep them going, is what we're trying to accomplish. And then also in there has really been a discussion about broadband access. And we knew the issues of broadband access for the region were difficult. And again, COVID just exploits that. And certainly those of you that have children that might be going to school right now and you're on the Zoom, and maybe you've got a spouse who's on the Zoom, that's a lot of bandwidth. And if you can do that, if you have 3 devices and you've got the bandwidth to do that, well, that's great. But there are literally, I've seen the map. I know the map. Spots in San Bernardino and Riverside County that just don't have coverage at all. And so this is going to continue to be a major issue for us, and access for the students and for business as well. And then the workforce recovery team, again, looking with the workforce investment boards. I didn't know, and now I do, that every year in our region, we graduate 70,000 12th graders, 70,000 12th graders. So between the class of 2020 and 2021, that's 140,000 18-year-olds, right? Graduating into a very difficult job market. And the community colleges having trouble recruiting people, many because they don't have the money, they've lost a job, maybe mom and dad have lost a job. And so this becomes a huge issue if we're not paying attention to it. So if you have an 18-year-old who graduated in June of last year, maybe they haven't got a job, maybe they are just messing around with their friends, and you do something stupid and you get arrested, okay? Immediately that affects your ability to earn over the long term. Summer jobs, first jobs where you get the opportunity to, work, find out what it's like to work on a team, your soft skills, all of that in one way or another has been lost during this pandemic. And so one of the recommendations out of the workforce recovery team is really a Hire 2020 campaign, Hire 2021 campaign, focused on that group of young people. And if there is an opportunity, to hire somebody part-time, we just need to realize that this is going to cause a ripple effect in our workforce, and our workforce being trained, our workforce being ready, and also to get educated. Whether they start working at Amazon, Amazon still has great programs to pay for community college. If you get to community college, then you can get your BA. And so we just have to realize that there's a cork in the pipe here, and it's a problem. And the last thing I'll say on the workforce piece is that our researchers are very concerned about the job loss due to automation. And so where we thought that really any type of major job loss due to automation, the date was always 2035. And we know by surveying that the date for the implementation of artificial intelligence, augmented or virtual reality systems, and autonomous systems is today, right? And companies have seen, because of COVID, that if they're going to continue to be able to be productive, that the implementation of artificial intelligence and autonomous vehicles, and that they need to do that because robots don't get sick from airborne viruses, right? They get sick from other type of viruses. So this is going to continue to be an issue for the region. So with that said, I want to transition to the Center of Excellence. And so Lisa, if you could move up to the next. So Center of Excellence in Logistics. The Inland Empire, and I've lived here my whole life, so I can remember when there was no hospitality lane in San Bernardino, but there was a Tri-City airport, a little airport out there. If I was driving from Redlands to Colton to see my uncle on the north side of the freeway, there were large swaths of orange groves, and you could even see horses and pigs being grazed out there, okay? And that's not too long ago. Well, the citrus industry is gone, but our region has really become a major logistics hub for the world. And there are issues that come with that, quality of life issues that come with that. And there are also great opportunities that come with that. So believe it or not, 10% of all warehouses in the United States, 10% of all warehouses in the United States are located in the Inland Empire. Only the state of Pennsylvania has more warehouses than we do. And that's because it's really, the Pennsylvania is feeding the Northeast into New York, Pennsylvania, New York. So why do we have so many warehouses? Because of the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. 42% of all goods imported into the United States, 42% of all goods imported into the United States come into the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, and then come here. And they're here, then they're reconfigured, right? Put in a warehouse, reconfigured, and then sent out to all of the states in the continental United States. So we, as a region, play a major role in the economy of the United States, in global trade, and in just making in the things that people are able to purchase. So as a region, we've never really looked at that and said, well, how can we do this better? Okay, how can we be a leader in the logistics world? We already are, right? Amazon is its largest footprint is in the Inland Empire. And the region has grappled in big fights around logistics. The concept of the Center of Excellence is really to create the supply chain of the 22nd century and to use those 10% of warehouses, to use our Class 1 railroads, Union Pacific and the BNSF, and the infrastructure that exists within the various types of trucks, whether they're long haul or drayage, and to see how we can be a leader in the world in clean logistics. And while we do that, we maintain the job base, okay? So you heard me talk about the rush to automation, and that's going to happen, right? It's just part of the way the economy works. And we know that because human beings are smart and we've been able to create over and over again, that we come up with new technologies. Well, if we're going to do that, then we should be partnering with our educational institutions to make sure that we're training people for those new jobs, right? The care and feeding of the robots, the work that has to be done in the new automated systems to maintain them. Certainly the implementation of artificial or autonomous vehicles. So this is an 18-wheel, a UPS 18-wheel UPS truck. This is an 18-wheel UPS truck, okay? And actually, in reality, there'd be a third one over here, okay? There's one driver in here, all right? In this one, this is tethered electronically, 6 feet behind the first one, okay? And then the other one is tethered behind that one electronically. There is one driver, okay, in this one. 2 truck drivers lost their job because of this new technology. But about a team of 8 to 10 is required to make this technology work, okay? And so these trucks are traveling down the freeway. Something happens that this one needs to swerve. This one will swerve. And then when they've gotten around whatever they have to, they come back together and they keep on down the road, okay? That's one new technology. The newest one that we've heard about is the Avatar technology. So the movie Avatar, the guy jumps in the bionic suit, the big bionic suit, and he can go out there and fight the big blue people, okay? That technology exists today. It's being used by the military, and we're seeing it being introduced in place of forklifts, okay, where a human being can lift 10, 20, 30 times what a human being could. And that technology is a stopgap, right? That technology with the human being inside, right, in a warehouse, moving things, right, is being trapped. And at some point, the human being will come out of that. And what you'll be left with is the robot that moves things really fast, okay? Much faster than we can right now. So just 2 types of technology. And then literally the drones, okay? Because of COVID, there's pressure on the FAA to get some rulings done that have kept companies from being able to implement drones. So UPS has used drones that are as big as cars to deliver medicine in Africa, okay? The ability for drones to drop stuff in our backyards exists, right? They just need to figure out the rules and how that's going to work. The concept of the Center of Excellence is that we turn our region and our region's assets and supply chain into a living laboratory, and that we lead in this area. And we think that we've got a great opportunity. So next slide. So this is how it breaks out when we talk about logistics, right? The intralogistics, right, which is the series of warehouses and their connectivity within the Inland Empire. We're working with Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech has one of the most advanced research facilities in this area. Lisa and I have had the opportunity to travel to Georgia Tech to meet with the team. Team's been out here many times. Georgia Tech in Atlanta is really a crossroads, right? And the movement of goods has always been important to them and to Georgia Tech itself. And so this is not something new to them. And if you think about Atlanta, it's very much like the Inland Empire, all right? So if Atlanta were, call it Ontario, okay? And if you go to the port of Los Angeles, right? The corridor that is the 10 and the 60, very much that is kind of mirrored in Atlanta to the port of Savannah, okay? It's just much smaller than the Inland Empire. And the Georgia Tech team, because Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Kaiser, and other UPS are headquartered in Atlanta, they've been able to create really good synergies. And I would also say that the state of Georgia has really invested in the support of the logistics industry in the state of Georgia. If you go to Georgia Tech and you want to meet with the governor's office of logistics, you go into one building and it's on the 15th floor. And then if you want to go meet with the Chamber of Commerce for the state and focused on logistics, well, it's on the 13th floor. And then you've got Georgia Tech embedded on the 12th floor. They are very good at creating an ecosystem that is business friendly. And so for the Center of Logistics, we were trying to mirror what their work is. And we really want Georgia Tech to help our institutions do this kind of training better. So interlogistics, how do we get the warehouses to be better coordinated? If we bought stuff for Christmas and on the day after Christmas, that stuff isn't going to be needed until October of next year, maybe you ship that to Barstow, right? And that's going to be stored there for a long time. So it's one truck trip out, one truck trip back. Instead of putting it closer and maybe taking up space for some product that's going to be needed sooner, right? And if it's closer to the hub where the action is, then it makes more sense. And so trying to think through those issues, trying to think through, again, the automation, the roboticization, how does that get implemented in our warehouses? Regional logistics, right now, when a truck leaves the port of Los Angeles, there's nobody who's tracking that, right? There's no control tower that says, okay, from the ship into the warehouse and to where its destination is going, we know where it all is, okay? And that doesn't make a lot of sense in an era where, again, because of our phone, everybody knows where we are or where we've been. And so one of the foci here is to create that control tower so that we can lessen congestion, so that we can take advantage of our ability to know where there's an accident or where there's traffic and reroute trucks, okay? We're looking in Southern California. I've talked to a company that's actually building autonomous trains, right? It couldn't carry as many containers as a big train can, right? But it could carry one, and it could carry it during a time when there are no other trains. And so lots of fascinating opportunities here. National logistics, again, we feed the the whole of the continental United States, and how can we do that better and faster and keep our competitive edge of the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. There are currently 53 ships sitting, waiting to come into the ports of LA and Long Beach. That is not good, right? That is not good. And there are inefficiencies in the system that keep that from that could be mitigated against. And so, and then that of course ties us to the world, right? And we really do need to see ourselves as tied to the world. Next slide, please. Okay, so if we're going to have a center, where are we going to get money for it, right? So we're looking at working with the feds, okay, the federal government. We know that there's going to be an infrastructure bill that will probably come later this year. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is pushing Congress to pass the infrastructure bill by July 4th. And so we're actively talking to our legislators at the federal level and the Department of Transportation. We've been in contact with the governor and the governor's Office of Economic Development. And again, talking about the opportunities a Center of Excellence give to the region, right? Industry understands that California's climate goals are something that are going to need to be met, and that the implementation of cleaner vehicles is something that they support, right? But how do we do it in a way that pencils, right? There is no battery operated long haul truck, okay? It does not exist. And so we need to help create those technologies. Industry is a big player, and we really want the Center of Excellence to be a place that industry feels at home. Even the concept of the center is that it not be at one of our higher ed educational institutions. Because if you think about Cal State San Bernardino and UCR, even our community colleges, University of Redlands, everything's kind of on the outside, right? Where the center of logistics is really around the Ontario Airport, Fontana, the nexus of the 10 and the 15 freeways. And so working with ESRI, they did a hot map and they said, no, that's where you need to be, right? And we also don't want the center to be subsumed into a higher ed institution, right? It's got to be industry owned. And so you see there down at the bottom, the goals: research and innovation, education, workforce development, ecosystem, economic development, and center operations. So we want the Center of Excellence to be a place if you want to get a job, if you need some research done, if you need to move something, that it's kind of a one-stop for the region. Next slide, please. And stakeholder outcomes, what do we get, right? What does the community get? Quality of life, right? Prepared workforce, air quality, one of our major issues. Resiliency. Can you imagine what COVID-19 and lockdowns would be like if we weren't able to have stuff delivered to our doors, right? Many of us, right, aren't going to Stater Brothers or Vaughn's or Ralph's, right? We're having someone get our stuff and bring it to us, okay? Completely doable, again, because of technology. You don't have to go to CVS, so CVS will mail you your drugs, okay? And Amazon and the Amazon effect, right? How many of us have bought stuff and will continue to buy stuff? using fulfillment. And COVID has accelerated where the numbers that the industry thought that they would hit, that they're hitting right now, they thought were 5 to 7 years out, okay? That's how fast and rapidly the implementation of fulfillment has become. If you talk to our friends at UPS, peak for them used to start around August and go to Christmas. Since COVID, they've been at peak and beyond, and they do not believe that they'll ever go back, right? So it's a new world, and we need to understand that, and we need to build resiliency into this system, which many of us, is for many of us and for the country, has become a new norm. So you can see the benefits to industry, and you can see the benefits to the state. So it's a heavy lift, but a lot of people are involved in this and think that for our region and for Southern California and the state itself, that this is a good idea. So Lisa, I think I've been talking for 44 minutes. So I will stop, and you can read me any questions that people have.
Okay, very good. Well, we have some on this, and then we'd also like to then get your perspective on what's happening with manufacturing and the reshoring initiatives, because I know you're involved in those too.
Sure.
So one of the questions, it's really kind of a statement as well, but Tony's asking about the Center of Excellence, and it kind of sounds a little bit like an inland port concept, he said, with dedicated rail feeding the IE. I know that Tony's been working with some CSUSB students on that concept anyway, to reduce the truck traffic and pollution in Southern California, et cetera. Do you see that, I don't know,
So,
sort of
yeah,
involved?
Yeah, the concept of the inland port is it's real. There's discussions that are going on about where it would be located. It needs to have be located next to a rail line. There's talk of places in the Coachella Valley, the Morongo Reservation. They've looked at places around Ontario Airport. And current facilities in Colton and Bloomington and Fontana. So if I think that we have to build the inland port, it's just necessary to help us to deal with the capacity issues. And I think that long-term, it will make the system much more smoother than it currently is.
True. And actually that reminds me, for some reason, it reminds me of, Ontario. Could you speak a little bit about Ontario Airport?
Ontario Airport has passed Hartsfield in Atlanta and is now the #1 air cargo airport in the nation. Okay. And that happened in a matter of a couple of years, right? And the UPS facility there has always been very important to the system. And FedEx moved its cargo handling from Los Angeles, LAX, to Ontario, and then Amazon is there as well. Right. So major part of the supply chain is the role that Ontario plays. But because traffic is traffic, and trying to move a truck, a UPS truck from Ontario to San Bernardino or Redlands can take an hour sometimes. You've seen really the build out of San Bernardino International, the former Norton Air Force Base. And Amazon has Amazon UPS also flying into March Air Reserve Base. So it's all about how quickly we want our stuff, and those companies are utilizing the infrastructure that we have.
That's a good point. Actually, that reminds me of I had heard that they were building out the San Bernardino Airport. Is that like a backup, or would there be certain things that go through there specifically, I guess?
No, I think it's about, localizing, right?
Okay.
And so they're building the East Terminal it's a brand new terminal, and it's going to be dedicated to Amazon at the San Bernardino International Airport.
Okay, makes sense. You may have answered this question, but the question is, when do you think the infrastructure will be in place to accommodate the automation efforts that you were talking about?
That's a good question, right? And, some of these technologies that were on the drawing board, just the rate that they're being implemented is really hard, I think, to track, right? You've really got to get into the heads of some of the big corporate players to see what they're looking at, right? So I think everybody's heard of the dark warehouse, right? Which you don't have to light it because there's no human beings in there that need to see anything. Okay, the stacking of warehouses, putting in a second floor. But you're just leaving enough room for the robotic system to do its thing. Okay, so it's going to come quickly. I know that at the Loma Linda Medical Center, the new hospital that's been built, that for the last year they've been training the nursing staff and housekeeping staff using virtual reality. So that when they get the keys and they open the hospital, they'll know where the different technology is. They've opened virtually drawers where things are kept. And what a great idea. What a great utilization of technology to take down the time it's going to need to get the hospital up and running.
That is a great idea. And I know they're doing that more and more too in both manufacturing and logistics as well. So that's very interesting. So let's see. We also one person's asking, have you spoke with any of our federal representatives for funding of this center? I think you said that you did talk to them, I know, but I'll let you answer.
Yeah, no, President Morales and I have been tasked by the group that's focused on this. And this really comes out of a Brookings study that looked at our economy, and we were really focused on where are jobs going to be for us in the future. And this was the #1 recommendation, that we create a center of excellence, that we build on what we have, and that we change the narrative, right? That we should be proud of what we do, right? And we should do it cleaner, and we should make sure that we're mitigating against the quality of life issues. And so, but the answer is a definite yes. We have. I've personally spoken with Senator Feinstein, Vice President Harris when she was Senator Harris, and members of our congressional delegation.
Very good. Well, and actually that kind of relates to a question here about what can we do to help you with this, because we're all interested in certainly becoming, the Center of Excellence being successful. We have folks in our Association for Supply Chain Management chapter that work for some of the large companies, and we also have folks who are the small and medium-sized manufacturers and distributors. So we have all of the above, and some folks are connected to, can't probably be more connected than you to the governmental folks, but higher education. But is there anything that we can do to help you, basically?
And being connected to the governmental piece isn't always the best thing. Right. No, I think being supportive of the concept, and then when we roll it out, it really is intended to help us get people employed in good jobs, right? And to have a career path, to support a strong middle class region like the Inland Empire, right? So to be supportive of the concept, and then I think as we roll out, having it can't just be an academic exercise, right? Small businesses, medium-sized businesses, manufacturing, all need to have a piece of this, right? We can only create the best new technologies, best programs, and job training if we're all working together. And so it's really the concept has always been that it has to be people that sign the front of checks, they need to be to own this, and that's how it'll be successful. And it's, yes, the Amazons and the Walmarts and the Coca-Colas are important, but the manufacturing sector in the Inland Empire, right, on average, it's 5 to 50 employees. Okay, lots of family-owned manufacturing in the Inland Empire, and we want them to have a part of this, because we know that logistics and manufacturing are going to dovetail, and they're already starting to dovetail. For Christmas, my 9-year-old daughter got a 3D printer, and I'm amazed at the stuff that little 3D printer can make, and she hasn't even used 10% of what it's capable of doing. And so, I think I heard an NPR story that they figured out how to 3D print a steak, right?
Wow.
Okay.
That's very, you're right. There's just so much opportunity. So I guess the two questions that I think, since I know we're running shorter on time here. So one would be, like you said, there's going to be a lot of retraining, and how do we transition people from, the jobs that are going away to the jobs that are coming? I know that's a key piece of the Center of Excellence. So that's one question. And then the other one, so that you know about time between the two, does relate to the reshoring initiative and manufacturing and what's happening with that.
Yeah, so I think the retraining piece, right? There's no doubt that, as I said, the forklift is going away. Okay, the forklift driver is going away. The need for a forklift will be there. John Deere tractors, if you go to the catalog, there's tractors that don't even have a cab for a driver anymore, because the global positioning allows, what's better to use, if I've got a Roomba that can, knows my house, it's easy to get a tractor to go plow the field all by itself, right? So it's going to happen, right? There is going to be job loss due to this. The question is, what new technologies, at what level are they going to be needed and implemented, and what then new businesses can be created around these technologies? And then we can go to our education partners and say, I need people that know this, okay? And really, I think this is going to be hardest for our education partners, because they've had one way of doing it for the last really 60, 70 years, right? I mean, not a lot of us would have a BA 60 or 70 years ago, okay? And they've had to change, and they're going to have to continue to change. And the fact that they've had to go to the virtual world, right? Something that higher ed fought, right? They were not going to do this, right? But they've done it, and that genie's not going back in the bottle. And so I think we need to, as business owners and consultants that work with businesses, keep our ear to the ground, right? And understand, and help them understand when there's a trend, right? It's really taking off. Mm-hmm. The reshoring, it can't just be Riverside County wanting to get businesses to reshore, right? Or San Bernardino County, right? The way we're working at it as a Southern California reshoring. So the most important word there being California, which if I'm being asked to reshore, says to somebody, well, that's going to cost me a lot more money than Texas or Arizona or Nevada. Okay, so why California if I know that it's going to cost me more to be there? And so we look at it, and we, the Inland Empire Economic Partnership, the Orange County Business Council, the LA Chamber of Commerce, the LA Economic Development Corporation, the San Diego Economic Development Corporation, we look at it as it has to be a Southern California play, okay, that says we don't necessarily want, there's some reshoring that we just don't want because it's not going to really help us, right? But if there's pharmaceuticals reshoring, right? Well, that matches up with what's going on in San Diego, right? Biotech, that matches what's going on in Orange County, all right? Manufacturing and virtual technology in Los Angeles, right? And by the way, if you come to Southern California in the Inland Empire, boy, we can move it for you, right? We can get it to the rest of the country. And so that's the way we're looking at the reshoring. And we have to do that in concert with the state and the governor's office. And so we're talking to the governor's office of economic development about that as well. So yeah, because otherwise it's Los Angeles fighting San Bernardino and San Bernardino fighting Riverside, and
Doesn't help.
It doesn't help.
No. And actually, there is one person who asked a question here that I was talking to Fran yesterday, so I think I should ask this question because she would be very unhappy with me if I didn't. So somebody just asked about the sourcing rule. So maybe you could tell us about that and what we can do, if anything.
You make me talk for an hour during lunchtime, and then you make me
end on the sourcing rule. I'm so sorry.
With the indirect source rule. So the South Coast Air Quality Management District has responsibility for stationary sources, okay? So one of my members, California Steel, right, in Fontana. It's a steel company, and they are required to meet the regulations that the South Coast AQMD puts on them for emissions. And they do a really good job of it. And it costs them a lot of money, again, to be in California. So the California Air Resources Board has responsibility for mobile sources. So trucks, trains, okay, and ships. So because the AQMD is responsible for hitting certain emissions goals, they have pretty much done everything they can to try and hit those emissions goals when it comes to the regulation of stationary sources. So now they're trying to say, well, in order to meet those goals, we need to indirectly, right? We need to go to those mobile sources, and this mobile sources being the trucks. So the indirect source rule says that we're going to charge you for the number of vehicles that come to your warehouse facility, okay? Well, that's problematic for a lot of reasons, okay? One is that most warehouse owners don't know, right, what trucks are coming to their facility in any one given day, okay? And most warehouse owners, they rent out the facility to someone, okay? So this is really looked at as a taxing mechanism for the Air Quality Management District. There's no real science to this. They can't give us a number of how this is going to, as a rule, and when the AQMD makes rules, usually attached to it is this rule will lower NOx emissions by point something something, right? This rule, the indirect source rule, they can't show us any loss, any reduction in NOx. So it's just not a good idea. And so as a region, we're really going to have to push back on this. And it's not because we don't want clean air, but at the same time, this is bad for the industry. It's bad. It's bad for job creation, and it's going to again hurt the region, not help it.
Well, thank you, Paul. Yes, you're right. That we all do, and if we should, it's good that the reason I asked this question is I know that it's definitely of concern for making all these outcomes we're talking about happen. So anyway, so thank you for answering that last question, and we really appreciate it. It's been really, really interesting, and like you said, there's a lot of things coming here. We need all the expertise we can get in logistics and manufacturing. Like you said, they dovetail together, and we also, you know, just appreciate it because I think there's a lot of opportunity in this region, and so this group is well positioned to move forward in the future. So thank you for that, and it certainly sounds critical given the changing nature of jobs as well.
Yeah, we to live in interesting times, and we live in interesting times, and we just all have to be paying attention because the ground is moving underneath us, and we don't even know how much yet. So.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. And what a phrase for California. So, well, thank you very much, Paul, for joining us. And for those of you that joined us, you know, we're going to continue on our Emerging with Supply Chain Strength webinar series in March. We actually have two webinars. So John Tulek's going to talk about what's going on internationally with Mexico and China and what that's going to mean for us. And then we also have a webinar on partnerships and creating a resilient supply chain later on in March. So stay tuned on our website for those upcoming webinars. And thank you very much.